Ancient Nubia, located along the Nile River in what is today southern Egypt and northern Sudan, was home to one of Africa's earliest and most enduring civilizations. From the pre-Kerma period, c. 3500 BCE, through the Kingdom of Kush, c. 1070 BCE to 350 CE, Nubia developed distinctive political, social, and legal institutions influenced by geography, trade, and interaction with neighboring Egypt. While much of Nubian history is reconstructed from archaeological evidence and Egyptian records, certain patterns in governance, dispute resolution, and social regulation suggest a coherent legal framework that guided everyday life and state affairs. Political and legal authority. The Nubian state was often highly centralized, particularly during the Kerma, c. 2500 to 1500 BCE, and later Kushite periods. Kings, or Kor in Meroitic times, were not only political and military leaders, but also the supreme judicial authority. The king's word was law, and he administered justice directly or through appointed officials. This role mirrors the Egyptian pharaoh's function, but retained Nubian distinctions, particularly in local governance. Nubian rulers were seen as intermediaries between humans and the divine, and their decrees were justified both politically and spiritually. In addition to the king, local administrators played an essential role in law enforcement and adjudication. These officials, often members of the elite or priestly class, acted as magistrates in local disputes, particularly concerning property, inheritance, and family matters. In the Meroitic period, c. 300 BCE to 350 CE, inscriptions reveal that governors were empowered to issue legal judgments and collect fines, suggesting a structured legal bureaucracy. Sources of law. Unlike Mesopotamia or Egypt, which produced codified law codes such as Hammurabi's Code or the Egyptian law of the pharaohs, Nubia's legal framework relied more on customary law, fas, or unwritten norms, supplemented by royal decrees and religious principles. Customary law governed social interactions, family obligations, land ownership, and trade. Oral traditions preserved these norms across generations, often enforced by local councils or elders. Archaeological evidence, such as Kerma grave inscriptions and stelae, indicates that breaches of these norms were addressed through compensation, fines, or ritualized reconciliation. Royal decrees, preserved in inscriptions at temples and palaces, provided authoritative resolutions in cases of rebellion, treason, or disputes between elite families. For example, the Kushite rulers of Napata and later Meroe imposed strict punishments on those that are threatening royal authority or interfering with state-controlled trade along the Nile. Temples also played a role in legal matters. Priests acted as mediators in civil disputes and ensured that contracts and agreements aligned with religious norms. Legal procedures. While explicit details of Nubian court procedures are scarce, evidence suggests a combination of formal and informal processes. In the Kerma period, disputes were likely mediated through local assemblies of elders and family heads, where arguments were presented, witnesses called, and settlements reached through consensus or negotiation. This approach emphasized restorative justice, reconciliation, and compensation rather than punitive measures, reflecting communal and kinship-based societal values. During the Napatan and Meroitic periods, legal procedures became more formalized. Royal courts likely included scribes, witnesses, and officials who recorded judgments. Punishments could involve fines, forced labor, confiscation of property, or, in extreme cases, execution. Trade violations, particularly in gold, ivory, and slaves, were severely punished, reflecting the state's interest in protecting key economic resources. Some inscriptions suggest that Nubian law incorporated elements of Egyptian legal practice, particularly in procedural matters and the recognition of contracts, though adapted to local cultural norms. Social and family law. Nubian law placed great emphasis on family, inheritance, and marital arrangements. Women could own property, inherit land, and engage in commercial activity, though male relatives often represented them in legal proceedings. Marriage contracts and dowries were common, with violations addressed through restitution or compensation. Funerary practices also reflected legal considerations. Tomb inscriptions sometimes recorded property allocations, indicating that legal rights were tied to lineage and ritual obligations. Children and heirs were protected under customary laws, which mandated proper succession and preservation of family property. Disputes over land, particularly agricultural estates along the Nile, were frequent, and resolution often involved both mediation and formal adjudication. This emphasis on property rights reflects Nubia's economic reliance on agriculture, trade, and craft production, where land disputes could significantly impact social stability. Crime and punishment. Criminal law in ancient Nubia appears to have focused on theft, assault, rebellion, and offenses against the king or gods. Punishments varied according to the severity of the crime and the social status of the offender. Theft might be punished by restitution or corporal punishment, while rebellion or attacks on state officials could result in execution or enslavement. Unlike the more codified systems of Mesopotamia, Nubian justice was flexible and often mediated through negotiation, reflecting both the oral tradition of law and the communal nature of Nubian society. Slavery and servitude were legally regulated, particularly in relation to debt and war captives. Contracts for labor were likely formalized through oral agreements, with penalties for breach enforced by local officials or royal decree. Religious and ritual norms also guided punishment. Crimes against the gods, temple property, or sacred animals were considered particularly severe and often punished by ceremonial expiation alongside material fines. Hasher. Legal interaction with Egypt. Nubia's legal system was influenced by Egypt due to centuries of contact, trade, and intermittent political domination, particularly during the New Kingdom, c. 1550 to 1070 BCE. Egyptian scribes and officials stationed in Nubia introduced elements of Egyptian bureaucracy, including record-keeping, written contracts, and court procedure. However, Nubians adapted these influences to local traditions, blending Egyptian formalism with indigenous customs. For example, while Egyptian law emphasized codified penalties, Nubian law often prioritized negotiated settlements and communal reconciliation, highlighting the distinct cultural approach to justice. Religion and law. Religion underpinned Nubian legal practice. Kings were intermediaries with gods, temples served as legal centers, and priestly elites acted as judges or advisors. Laws were often framed as divine mandates or as protecting sacred institutions. In the Meroitic period, inscriptions suggest that violations of social or religious norms could be punished ritually, with penalties meant to restore cosmic balance, Ma'at, akin to Egyptian concepts of order and justice. Deities, particularly those associated with fertility, war, and the afterlife, were central in legal considerations. Contracts, property transfers, and oaths were often made in the name of gods, providing a moral and religious foundation for legal obligations. This intertwining of law and religion ensured compliance while reinforcing the legitimacy of ruling authorities. Legacy. The legal systems of ancient Nubia, though less codified than those of Mesopotamia or Egypt, played a crucial role in maintaining social cohesion, regulating trade, and legitimizing political authority. By emphasizing customary law, family rights, and negotiated settlements, Nubian law reflects a pragmatic approach tailored to the Nile Valley's geographic, economic, and social conditions. Despite the limited textual evidence, archaeological and inscriptional sources indicate a sophisticated legal consciousness that balanced the power of the king with local customs, familial obligations, and religious norms. Nubian legal traditions likely influenced later African legal systems, particularly in regions influenced by the Kingdom of Kush and its trade networks. Modern scholars draw on these systems to understand early African approaches to law, governance, and justice, highlighting the diversity and complexity of pre-colonial legal cultures. References. 1. Adams, W.Y., 1977, Nubia, Corridor to Africa, Princeton University Press. 2. Turek L., 1997, The Kingdom of Kush, Handbook of the Napatan Meroitic Civilization. Brill. 3. Shinny, P.L., 1996, Ancient Nubia. Kagan Paul International. 4. Edwards D.N., 2004, The Nubian Past and Archaeology of the Sudan, Routledge. 5. Kendall T., 2002, Napatan Temples, A Study of Nubian Legal and Religious Institutions, Journal of African History, 43-103-146. 6. Welsby D.A., 1998, The Kingdom of Kush, The Napatan and Meroitic Empires, British Museum Press. 7. Laban R.A., 2004, Historical Dictionary of Ancient and Medieval Nubia, Scarecrow Press.